Edmund Kemper. A name that sends shivers down the spine of those who know his story. The name itself evokes a chill, a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath a veneer of normalcy. His story is one of contrasts and contradictions, a tale that delves deep into the human psyche and the horrors it can harbor. Born in 1948, Kemper's early life seemed unremarkable on the surface. He grew up in a suburban neighborhood, a place where the American dream was supposed to flourish. But behind closed doors, a different reality was unfolding. Kemper possessed an exceptional IQ, estimated to be around 145. This intellectual prowess set him apart from his peers, making him a standout in the classroom. Teachers and classmates alike were often in awe of his quick wit and sharp mind. However, this brilliance was paired with a deeply disturbed psyche, a volatile combination that would ultimately lead to unimaginable horrors. His intelligence, instead of being a beacon of hope, became a tool for manipulation and control. Those who encountered Kemper often described him as polite, even charming. He had a way with words, a disarming smile that could put anyone at ease. It was this charm that allowed him to blend in, to hide his true nature from the world. He was a giant of a man, standing at 6 feet 9 inches tall, yet his demeanor was often disarmingly calm and composed. His towering presence was both intimidating and intriguing, a paradox that left many puzzled. This stark contrast between his imposing physique and his gentle facade would become a recurring theme throughout his life, a chilling reminder that appearances can be dangerously deceiving. It was this duality that made him so dangerous, so unpredictable. Kemper's intelligence was evident from a young age. He excelled in certain academic areas, displaying a keen mind that was quick to absorb information. His teachers often praised his abilities, unaware of the darkness that lurked within. He had a voracious appetite for knowledge, devouring books and seeking out new information with an insatiable curiosity. But this quest for knowledge was not driven by a love of learning, but rather by a need to understand and control the world around him. However, beneath the surface of this intellectual brilliance, a storm was brewing, fueled by a troubled childhood and a growing fascination with violence. His early years were marked by a series of traumatic events, experiences that would shape his twisted psyche and set him on a path of destruction. As a child, Kemper was often isolated, struggling to connect with those around him. His family life was tumultuous, with a domineering mother who belittled and berated him. This toxic environment only served to deepen his sense of alienation and resentment. It was during these formative years that his fascination with violence began to take root. He would often retreat into his own world, drawing disturbing images and fantasizing about acts of brutality. These dark thoughts were a precursor to the horrors that would later unfold. As he grew older, these violent fantasies became more pronounced, more consuming. He began to act out, displaying troubling behavior that hinted at the darkness within. Yet despite these warning signs, he managed to evade detection, his charm and intelligence masking his true nature. Edmund Kemper's story is a chilling reminder of the complexities of the human mind, the thin line between brilliance and madness. It is a tale that forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that sometimes the most dangerous monsters are the ones who walk among us, hidden in plain sight. Kemper's early life was marred by dysfunction and instability. Born into a family that was already struggling, he faced a childhood filled with emotional turmoil and neglect. His parents' relationship was far from harmonious, often marked by loud arguments and a palpable tension that filled their home. His parents' relationship was tumultuous, and he experienced significant emotional neglect. This lack of a stable, loving environment took a toll on young Kemper, who found himself increasingly isolated and misunderstood. The constant fighting and lack of attention left deep emotional scars. As a child, he exhibited disturbing behaviors, torturing animals and harboring violent fantasies. These early signs of psychopathy were alarming, yet they went largely unnoticed or were dismissed as mere childhood mischief. His actions were a cry for help, a manifestation of the inner turmoil he was experiencing. These early warning signs, however, went largely unaddressed, allowing the darkness within him to fester and grow. The lack of intervention or proper guidance meant that his violent tendencies were left unchecked, setting the stage for the horrors that were to come. At the tender age of 15, Kemper committed his first murders, taking the lives of his grandparents. This shocking act of violence was not just a crime, but a desperate attempt to assert control over his chaotic life. The rural setting of his grandparents' home became the backdrop for this gruesome event. The motive? A simmering resentment towards his grandmother, coupled with a desire to experience what it felt like to kill. This deadly combination of anger and curiosity led him to commit an act that would forever change the course of his life. The brutality of the murders was a chilling indication of the depths of his disturbed mind. The murders were brutal, calculated, and shocking in their cold-bloodedness, offering a chilling glimpse into the depths of Kemper's depravity. The crime scene was a testament to his meticulous planning and the cold efficiency with which he carried out the killings. It was a dark prelude to the even more horrifying acts he would commit in the future. Following the murders, Kemper was sent to Atascadero State Hospital, a maximum security facility for the criminally insane. Here, he was subjected to rigorous psychiatric evaluations and treatments, aimed at understanding the root causes of his violent behavior. The institution became his home for the next 5 years. Despite his youth, he was deemed too dangerous for juvenile detention. His actions had proven that he was a significant threat, not just to others, but to himself as well. The decision to place him in a maximum security facility underscored the severity of his crimes and the urgent need for intensive psychological intervention. It was within the walls of this institution that Kemper would spend the next 5 years of his life, undergoing psychiatric evaluation and treatment. These years were crucial in shaping his understanding of his own mind and the dark impulses that drove him. The treatments he received were aimed at rehabilitating him, but they also provided him with insights into the workings of the human psyche, knowledge he would later use to manipulate and deceive those around him. During his time at Atascadero, Kemper was a model patient, often engaging with the staff and participating in various therapeutic activities. He was highly intelligent and used this to his advantage, learning the language of psychology and using it to present himself as rehabilitated. This facade of normalcy would later play a crucial role in his release and the subsequent crimes he would commit. In 1969, at the age of 21, Kemper was released on parole. The authorities believed that he had been successfully rehabilitated and posed no further threat to society. However, this decision would prove to be a grave mistake, as the darkness within him had not been eradicated, merely hidden beneath a veneer of normalcy. Kemper's release marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life, one that would be marked by even more horrific crimes. The troubled youth who had once been a danger to his family would soon become a menace to society at large, leaving a trail of devastation in his wake. In 1969, at the age of 21, Edmund Kemper was released from Atascadero State Hospital, a high-security facility for the criminally insane. He had been incarcerated there since the age of 15, after committing the brutal murders of his grandparents. Despite the severity of his crimes and his diagnosed psychopathy, the authorities believed he had been rehabilitated. The decision to release him was based on the recommendations of psychiatrists who deemed him no longer a threat to society. They believed that his time in the facility had reformed him, and he was allowed to re-enter society with a clean slate. This decision would later be scrutinized as one of the most catastrophic misjudgments in criminal history. Armed with a manipulative charm and an ability to mask his true nature, Kemper seamlessly blended back into everyday life. He appeared to be a model citizen, engaging with his community, and even enrolling in college. However, beneath this facade, the same dark urges that had driven him to kill his grandparents continued to fester. He harbored a deep-seated rage and a desire for control that would soon manifest in the most horrific ways. Between 1972 and 1973, Kemper embarked on a terrifying killing spree that would terrorize California's central coast. During this period, he murdered 8 people, including 6 young female hitchhikers, his mother and her best friend. His method of operation was chillingly calculated and opportunistic. His victims were often young female hitchhikers, whom he would lure into his car with the promise of a ride. Kemper's imposing stature and seemingly friendly demeanor made it easy for him to gain their trust. Once they were in his car, he would drive them to secluded areas where he could carry out his gruesome plans without interruption. Once alone and vulnerable, Kemper would overpower them, subjecting them to horrific acts of violence before ultimately taking their lives. His attacks were not impulsive. They were meticulously planned and executed with a disturbing level of precision. He would often dismember his victims and keep their body parts as trophies, a testament to his need for control and dominance. Kemper's crimes were not merely acts of violence. They were fueled by a deep-seated rage, particularly towards his mother. His relationship with her was fraught with tension and abuse, and he saw his victims as surrogates for her. Each act of violence was an attempt to exert power over the woman who had dominated his life and psyche. He saw his victims as surrogates for her, enacting upon them the hatred and resentment he harbored towards the woman who had given him life. This twisted dynamic reached its horrifying climax when he finally turned his rage directly towards his mother, brutally murdering her and her best friend in a final act of defiance and control. The reign of terror that Kemper unleashed on the roads of California remains one of the most chilling chapters in the annals of criminal history, a stark reminder of the dangers of underestimating the depths of human depravity. On April 20th, 1973, Kemper committed the most shocking act of his murderous rampage, the murder of his own mother, Clarnell Strandberg. After years of enduring what he perceived as her emotional abuse and manipulation, Kemper finally snapped, bludgeoning her to death in her sleep. The murder of his mother was not a sudden act of passion, but a meticulously planned execution of a long-held fantasy. Kemper decapitated his mother's corpse, having sex with her severed head and using it as a dartboard. He then invited his mother's best friend over, killing her as well before fleeing the scene. Kemper's actions after the murder were a chilling testament to his depravity and his complete lack of remorse. He drove east, aimlessly wandering the country as if in a daze. As days turned into nights, the weight of his crimes began to press down on him, leading to a decision that would forever alter his fate.